Ciao a tutti. I'm back, and so is my terrible blending of white blanc makeup. Alright, so obviously, if you know anything about me, you know my favorite film of all time is The Dark Knight. This weekend, we had finally we had a standalone Batman movie again, and I gotta say, I fucking loved it to death. I guess this is my next video. I haven't really made a true, real video since I did the trailer reaction for this movie back in October in this same makeup. I had a different shirt. That one got lost. First of all, I gotta say, I loved Robert Pattinson. He did a great job, in my opinion, playing this version of Bruce Wayne. I don't know if he could necessarily have played the versions we've seen in past movies, but for this particular Batman, for this Bruce Wayne in this movie, he was like a perfect casting, in my opinion. And I think Paul Dano did an amazing job. He was really, in all honesty, he was really only in a couple of scenes, at least the actor is, besides just his voice, because for most of the Riddler stuff, he's like in a mask and everything. He's not really fully, you don't get to see the facial acting and stuff. But even in those small couple of scenes in the interrogation thing in Arkham and all of that, this is spoiler filled, by the way, he does a great, amazing job, and I fucking loved it. Now, I will say, for as much as the makeup for Colin Farrell, I think, not Colin Firth, Colin Farrell, I get them mixed up. Anyway, I think they did a great job in terms of the makeup and making him look completely different from what he actually looks like in real life, but I don't entirely know how I feel about him as the Penguin, his version of the Penguin. I think he makes a great mob boss. It's more, I don't know if he's the best Penguin out there. I actually liked Carmine Falcone better than the Penguin when it comes down to the villains, I guess. Obviously, the Riddler's the best, but I actually preferred Carmine to the Penguin in this movie. And I didn't think I would when I first saw Carmine Falcone pop up, but when you kind of get towards the end and he gets those interactions with Selina and even with Bruce and learning truths or supposed truths about Thomas Wayne, it really started to work for me, the Carmine Falcone character, and I loved it. I loved his role, and I just loved the overall just aesthetic of this movie. The cinematography was great, amazing, and I've heard a couple people say it's dragged on too much. I completely disagree. I thought it was perfect for a detective Batman movie. It was perfect. And that's one thing that I fucking loved about this movie, is it sets itself apart from all of the other Batman movies. All of the other Batman movies, I love The Dark Knight. It probably is still my favorite, if for any other reason than nostalgia. But this is extremely close. I never thought I would ever say that about a Batman movie again, but it is extremely fucking close. Also, I've got to say, Zoe Kravitz is definitively the best Catwoman ever after this movie. I mean, she's better than Michelle Pfeiffer. I think that one I might get slack for, but I don't care. I think she's undeniably better, in my opinion, I guess. She's better than Anne Hathaway, Lee Merriweather, the other one that was in the 60s. I don't know her name. And shockingly enough, she did a better job than Halle Berry. I think Zoe Kravitz almost makes this movie. She's kind of rivals Robert Pattinson and Bruce Wayne as being the best character, at least my favorite character. I love how they fleshed out her character in this movie with the whole backstory with her mom and the Falcones. I think Alfred was amazing as well for the little bits he was in there. I kind of wish there was more Alfred in this movie, to be honest, because I thought he did a great job. The actor's name's on the tip of my tongue. He's a famous actor. He's in the Planet of the Apes movies. He even directed the Let There Be Carnage movie. He directed a Jungle Book movie for Netflix, but for some goddamn reason, I can't think of his name right now. And I guess that's everything, I think. So let's move on to the negatives. That was not everything. I forgot to mention the fact that all of this stuff is kind of held together, in my opinion, so brilliantly by the music. Like, and I'm not just saying, ooh, the cool Nirvana song, which is obviously cool and fits perfectly and is great in this movie, but the score in general, it's by Michael Giacchino. It's like, it's an amazing score. It might be, I know I said this when Tenet came out too, but it might be my favorite score of all time. I think it is the best Batman score. I know you have the iconic Danny Elfman one. You have like that one pitch one that shouldn't work, but works perfectly in The Dark Knight. But I think this is right up there. Probably the best in my opinion. I love the score and the music in this movie so much. And it works so perfectly in the moments that it happens and the moments that it swells up. And the action, even though it's probably the least action-packed Batman movie there is, it might have the best action, at least fight, hand-to-hand fist combat action sequences in any Batman movie. Maybe that's because technology is to the point where you can make these suits, these Batman suits, that it's a lot easier to move around in. And the whole "I'm vengeance" thing, I love what they did with that line, how it's sort of Batman's catchphrase at the beginning, and then towards the end, he starts to regrets using that catchphrase, and that vengeance should not be the motivation, and how the Riddler uses it and thinks that they're teams, they're both working together to fix the city and do all of these horrendous things that the Riddler's doing. I kind of loved that whole vengeance aspect to this movie, and I thought it fit perfectly with Batman. And I love how in this movie, it seems like they paid homage to almost every version of Batman I can think of personally, whether it's done intentionally or not. When you walk into like the orphanage and you see the green paint and green arrows sprayed on the walls, it reminded me so much of like Batman Arkham Asylum and the Arkham video games. You had instances that just reminded me of The Dark Knight, of even Batman Forever, when you kind of get towards the end, I guess, which I guess we can get into now. I don't know what other people are saying about it. The laugh at the end, at first I thought it was Joaquin Phoenix's voice, but I don't think it was, according to IMDb. Anyway, the laugh makes me second guess this, but when they showed a silhouette of that unnamed Arkham prisoner's face, I thought it looked suspiciously like Two-Face, and then they said something about a comeback story and, Harvey Dent being a DA and all of that and coming back, as well as a metaphor for having a failed Batman movie where Riddler and Two-Face team up, and then you have like another one, like a comeback where you have a good movie with those two teaming up per se, potentially, I guess. And so I kind of liked that as well. So you kind of get, in my opinion, some kind of Batman Forever thing, if that theory is correct. And even Under the Red Hood, from both the comics and the movies, that speech he gives to Catwoman when she's about to push Officer Mackenzie off the building, it's so much feels like it's taken straight out of Under the Red Hood, and the speech he gives to Jason Todd when he's going to kill the Joker. And as a Batman fan and a DC fan in general, I love all of those things in there like that. And now, on to the negatives, the very little negatives that there are in this movie. I think one negative I will have to say is I think the third act didn't entirely... I think the writing of the third act was good in terms of how they used like vengeance and all the Riddler stuff. But I think the flooding and then everybody going into like Madison Square Garden, or Gotham City's equivalent of Madison Square Garden, it felt less grounded than the rest of the film to me. And I don't have a problem with that particularly, but I feel like in terms of third acts, I feel like The Dark Knight was more grounded. But in terms of the first two acts, I feel like The Batman is more grounded. But that being said, I still loved it and enjoyed it, but I don't think the third act, as a third act, is as memorable as the first two acts that lead up to it. but it is still great nonetheless. And then I guess my second negative would have to be the fact that I think the cast is too good or too stacked, where you have like actors, like amazing actors that are playing the roles amazingly, but there's so many of them that the roles become small and they're only in like a couple of scenes. Like I said with Alfred Pennyworth, I would have loved to have seen him more, but at the same time, it would have dragged the movie out. And you could say the same thing about Paul Dano outside of the mask and outside of that Riddler costume. You know, you'd love to see him more, but that would drag the movie out. And I do think it doesn't suffer, I guess, from that. It more just makes you want more, which I guess might be what they're going for if they want a franchise out of this. Nonetheless, all of that aside, I'm giving this movie a 5 out of 5. I fucking loved it, and I'm probably going to see it multiple times in the theaters. At least as many times as financially viable. So tell me your thoughts on Matt Reeves, the Batman, in the comment section down below. Tell me how horrible my makeup skills are with this white blanc on my face. And just tell me whatever you want. If you're a Batman fan, if you're not a Batman fan, if you hated this movie, if you hate all Batman movies, I don't care. Tell me what you want in the comment section down below. And if you make an argument, make an actual argument. Don't just say I'm wrong or something. And so, yeah. And if you want to watch me balance my film loving side with my sports loving side, if you want to watch me balance my art house loving side with my Fast and Furious super fan side, and while I do it all in horrible cosplay attempts, if you want to see all of that, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And as for now, tschüss. What else do I have to say? Court of Owls? Mask? What do you think, Man-Bat? What do you think? What about you, Green Lantern? Did I mention everything? Alan Scott, Green Lantern? I'm going crazy here. Makeup's starting to make me go crazy.